Hi Stampers, this is Debbie Henderson from Debbie's Designs. I am a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator and I welcome you to my new video today featuring this card. I first spotted this card on Pinterest and traced it back to Stampin' Jacqueline. I actually only saw a picture of it and figured out how to do it on my own. And when you open up or untie the ribbon, the card actually opens up. So there's your gatefold. And then this lifts up. So you have your easel card. So let's get started. We do need quite a few layers of cardstock and designer paper for your project today. We'll start off with real red. You need 4 pieces measuring 1.5 inches by 5 inches. And then you'll need 2 pieces measuring 3.5 inch by 5 inches. In your designer paper, you'll need 1 measuring 3.5 by 4.5 inches and 4 layering pieces measuring 1 inch by 4.5 inches. You'll also need 1 Calypso Coral cut at 4 inches by 5.5 inches. And I've already rounded the corners off of this piece. We will be rounding the corners off all the other additional pieces. You will also need 1 full sheet of the Calypso Coral, 8.5 by 11, and we'll be scoring that, so I'll show you that in a minute. You will need 18 inches of ribbon from the Bration catalog 2015, a tea-lace doily, and a candy dot brad base, and we'll also use a candy dot to put in the middle. Our next step is to take all the layers and round the corners. As you can see, I did most of my layers. I have 1 left and I'm using the Project Life corner rounder punch. And when you use this punch, you have to make sure, see the edges right there. Push that in all the way. Make sure it's snug on both sides and punch. I love this punch, very easy to use. Okay, and that's all of our layers. They've all been rounded. And now we'll go on to our scoring. For the scoring, I have drawn a diagram of the actual scoring lines and what your card should look like when you're done with your scoring. I will have this scanned and loaded to my blog so you can print it if needed. And please disregard my markers up top here. I've glued those in place so I don't lose them. Those are my halfway marks to my card bases when I do the 11-inch card base or the 5.5-inch card base. So for our first line, we're going to score at 2 3/4 inches, and again at 5.5 inches. And then we're going to turn our paper over and score at 2 1/8 and 2 1/4. And you'll notice that these lines are close together. I'll show you why I did that. The next set of lines is going to be at 6 1/4 inches and 6 3/8 inches. So that's it for the scoring. Now you're going to position your cardstock so that the 2 folds are at the top, and I folded them so you can see. And to make it easier for you, I'm going to put an X here, 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 and here. And these are the pieces that we will be cutting out completely. And when I place them in my paper cutter, I'm actually going to use the inside line on both of these and cut those right off. So this is now what your cardstock should look like. Fold on this score line this way, and then towards the front of the card this way. And then you'll have 2 score lines on the side. So you're going to score and fold, score and fold. And the reason I did this is because we're going to have a lot of layers when everything is folded down. So you want to allow for the thickness of the layers. And we'll finish this one off. Okay, so now your card is folded And what we need to do now is round all the corners. So you're going to have 2 on the side pieces. And then on this one, you're going to round the 2 top pieces. And then you're going to fold this over so that you can round the bottom of both layers. Same thing on this side. Okay, now we are ready to do some stamping, and I'm using 2 stamp sets today, the Groovy Love, and I'm actually using this heart with the little polka dots, and I'm also using One Tag Fits All, which is from the Occasions 2015 catalog, and I'm using this banner with the sentiment and the tag. For inks today, we are using Real Red and Crisp Cantaloupe. And we're going to stamp 1 tag. And we're also going to stamp 3 hearts. And I'm going to cut them out with the coordinating punches. This is the Sweetheart punch. And we're also going to need a Real Red heart, so make sure you cut one of those out. And then we're going to use the tag punch to cut out the tag that I just stamped. And here's a little trick I can show you. You know how close this is to the edge. There's really no place for me to hold on to it. So I'm going to take a scrap piece of cardstock and glue this to it to make a handle. And let me cut this a little bit because I think it's going to be too far in. And using the handle, you can kind of steer it in there and cut. And now we're going to be using the Real Red ink to stamp our little banners. And we actually need 3 of these banners. 1 is going to go to the front and 2 on the inside. And I'm actually only going to be using 1 of the sentiments. So I'm going to use my modern label punch to cut it out. And then I'm going to hand cut my banners, and I leave a little bit of white as you're cutting. I'm not going to make you watch me cut all 3 of these. Also, I'll do 1 and then I'll be back with the other 2. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. And you probably can hear my cat in the background. She wants to be in on the action today. Okay, so this is what your little banner should look like, and I'm going to be back after I cut my other 2. Okay, I'm back and I have my banners all cut out, so let's review. We need 3 banners, 1 sentiment, a Real Red tag, a stamp tag, 3 hearts from the Groovy Love stamp set, and 1 heart with Real Red cardstock. So now we are ready for the exciting part, to start assembling our card. So let me move this over. And we're going to start with the back of the card. So it's folded this way. You're just going to flip it over. And you're going to take your strips of Real Red and your strips of designer paper, and you're going to glue those and layer them. And we're going to glue 1 to each side tab. And now in order for the card to remain closed, I added a piece of ribbon. And how I did that is I placed a piece of sticky strip in the center. And only in the center. And then I'll remove my backing. And find the center to my ribbon, just to give me an idea. And then I'll press this in place. And your card is ready to be tied. Now we do need to decorate this flap. And what I did is I glued the real red heart first. Kind of at an angle. And then I used Stampin' Dimensionals on my Calypso Coral or Crisp Cantaloupe heart. Put that this way. And then we're going to add some multi-purpose glue to our little flag. And I'm going to position this over the Crisp Cantaloupe heart. So that's all you need to do on that flap, and this one stays plain. And now for the inside, we're going to add one of the real red layers. And that goes right in the middle. And for this one, when we want our card to stand up, you're going to have to, on your own, figure out how slanted you want your easel to stand. And the two Crisp Cantaloupe hearts is what's going to hold it in place. So I'm going to use Stamping Dimensionals again. Whoops. And I want my card to be almost halfway. So when I place my first heart, I'm going to make sure it's butted up against where I'm holding the cardstock. And see, that's what's going to hold it in place when it's standing upright. And now we'll add our next heart. And that one doesn't have to butt up against as long as you have one. And then we're also going to add our sentiment, again, using Stamping Dimensionals. And I'm going to center that over the hearts. Okay, so that takes care of that portion. And for the inside flaps, all we're going to do is glue the layered strips. There's one. And there's two. Now, if you've never made an easel card before, the easel card is actually a card all by itself, just a flat panel that is glued to this part. And remember that this is folded in half, so you're going to want to add glue just to this half. And I usually add a little bit of extra because there's movement in this card and you don't want it coming apart. And just make sure that the edges are perfectly aligned. So you'll see that only half of it is glued, so when you turn it around and prop it, it's standing up straight. Sorry, I can't zoom out to show that better. So now we're going to decorate this front panel, and again we're going to use the real red layer. And we're going to center that. And then we're going to add our designer paper. And again, centered. And the next step is to add the doily, and I'm just going to add some glue in the center of it. and center that on my panel. And when I do my doilies, when I put them in place, I always make sure that this is upright in a straight line. It just looks better when it's centered that way. And then we're going to add, I added stamping dimensionals to my red tag. We're going to glue that in place first. So that one goes at a slant this way. And then we're going to add glue to our crisp cantaloupe. Oh, hold on, we gotta put the brad in first, so let's not glue that down just yet. Now we are using a candy dot brad base, and you can see what they look like. There's a little section on the top where you can put a candy dot in there. And I just happen to be totally out of the real red color dots. So what I'm going to do is take dots from one of my collections, the lighter colored ones, and these are pink. And I'm actually going to use my Blendabilities marker and color it. And these do color very well. And while that's drying, I'm going to pierce a hole in my tag and put the base in the hole. And I also always use my bone folder to press down so it's nice and flat. Of course, it's got glue on the back right now. I'm going to add a little bit more just to make sure I didn't take the tackiness out of it. Glue that to my card front. And then we're going to add the candy dot to the center. See how nice that looks with the Blendabilities color on it? And all we have left to do is to add the little flags. And I'm going to use my stamping dimensionals to do that, but I'm going to use this little skinny strip on the end. And I'm just going to cut little pieces. I'm going to need 6 of them. And I'll add one to each flag, maybe. I should use my paper piercer. And then we're just going to take off the backing and put one towards the bottom. And add your second one going in the different direction. And there you have it. So now when this stands up, you have the shape of the easel. And this makes for a beautiful decoration on the side. Then you just fold it flat for mailing. And tie your ribbon into a knot. Now you'll understand why I made a little bit of a gap there for the sides to allow for the thickness of all the layers. I hope you liked my card for today. I'll have all the supplies listed at the end. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email me. And I hope to see you shopping in my online store. Thank you.